my next guest has created an art book, which is essentially a love letter to Queen Elizabeth. It is entitled Duty, a love letter to Queen Elizabeth II. It is by Owen Innes, who joins me now. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Hi, Jumoké. Lovely to be on your show.
Oh, well, listen, it's such a beautiful book as well. You know, it's like one of those books you put on your table. You're like, and you flick through. Tell me when your love affair with the Queen started and how it started.
Well, thank you very much. So I think it pretty much started when I was 5 years old, and I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. So at 5 years old, that's when we started school, and I attended primary class. And this was 1967, and back then in Canada, every morning we would start the day at school at 9 a.m. We would sing "God Save the Queen." So I would stand by my desk along with my classmates standing beside their desk. We'd face the front of the classroom, and there was a loudspeaker which would lead us in song. And above the loudspeaker, there was a beautiful sort of majestic portrait of Her Majesty. So we would do this day after day, month after month, and it's like so through that, Her Majesty, worked her way into my heart. I began to understand that, my Queen, the Queen of Canada, the Queen of England, was a uniter. She connected me to a wider world. And like most children, my world was small. We as children of 4 and 5, we sort of understand our little immediate world. But Her Majesty connected me to a much broader, vaster sisterhood of nations and made me feel international and sort of brought a little bit of excitement to my life.
And talk to me about your journey within art and how, have you always wanted to be an artist?
I think it was buried in there somewhere deeply. I began my professional life working in film and television, and in between contracts, I began to paint, and that quickly sort of took over my life and became my life's passion, my vocation, and that's where I've dedicated my creative energy in the past 30 years or so.
And it's been described, this book is being described as a visual biography. So you really are going from her beginnings to pretty much now.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with her birth right through to present day. And there's pictures that, it's in sort of chronological order, and it tells the story of her life. And as you say, it's a visual biography.
How... I mean, coming up with these drawings, because this must have been, it must have been a joy for you to do, given that you've always been passionate about the Queen and the Commonwealth, etc. But in deciding, okay, here are the X amount of images that need to go into that book, presumably there were lots of discarded ones as well.
Yeah, there certainly are lots that didn't make the cut, but I started this project in lockdown. So in the beginning of lockdown, I was with my husband in rural France. We have a place there, and that's where my painting studio is. So we're in this lovely, remote, quiet area, and we were also going through the process of becoming British citizens. So that the sense of nationhood and nationality was very much in the forefront of my mind. So I was between projects, and I sort of was playing around in my studio, and I thought, I came back to the Queen, as I often have in my work. She's a bit of a touchstone. And I evolved my style to a place that I was quite happy with. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do a series of portraits of Her Majesty. And we were just beginning the pandemic, and it was really difficult to figure out, okay, how am I going to share this work with people? And it came to me that a book would be a brilliant idea. It would be a project. It would be something I could accomplish during lockdown, however long it was. And over the last 2 years, it came together as the book you see before you.
And what's interesting as well is that within the book, you've got quotes which are by Her Majesty. And one I love, which is, if I wore beige. This is the mantra for everybody in the world, I think. If I wore beige, nobody would know who I am, because she really does like colour, doesn't she?
Well, she does. And I mean, even with that quote, we can tell she has a sense of humor that we don't get to see very often as the public. But I think it's a strategy for her, because she understands that sometimes she'll appear in public and there will be thousands upon thousands of people coming out to see her. And if she has bright, solid colors on, even for someone who's, say, 100 or 200 meters away in a crowd, they'll be easily able to identify Her Majesty because of her signature style and the sort of bold block of colors. So, it's very intentional, I think, so that, she, makes people happy because they get to see her when they come out be well wishers.
Indeed. And the quotes really bring to life some of the things that Her Majesty have said throughout the years. And one of them, which actually probably resonates as much for this Jubilee year as it did when it was originally said in 2002, which is that I hope these celebrations will remind us of our shared heritage and what it means to be a united people, enjoying the support of families, friends and neighbours around us. Of course, we know that politically at the moment, some royal family members have been going and touring the Caribbean, etc. And that's been very difficult. But there's no doubt that the Queen herself is highly regarded, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. And I think the Queen is, at the very core, she's a unifier. So as the head of the Commonwealth of Nations, I think it's very important for her to be the connector for these people. And it's a wonderful thing that, we have this sisterhood of nations where, the core principles are based on friendship and working together. And clearly we're in a time where we're seeing enormous strife in the world. So certainly I think if we build friendship between nations, it's a better foundation than, being individually and separated.
Owen, have you ever met the Queen?
I have not. When I was a young boy, she came to Nova Scotia. I think it was 1976. So I went downtown with my mom, and we waited in the crowd, and we saw her turn the soil to plant a tree at a memorial. So I've seen her, but I've never actually had the pleasure of meeting her up close.
And are you hoping that this book might facilitate the way to do that?
I've been asked that several times, and I would be delighted to meet Her Majesty. I understand that she's a very busy woman, and meeting me might not be on the top of her agenda, but if it ever came to be, it would be a lovely, lovely thing.
Well, it's a fine tribute to her, and thank you ever so much for joining us this afternoon. Owen Grant, it is, talking about his book. It's called Duty, a love letter to Queen Elizabeth II. It is out now. It was released on the 7th of April, and it pays tribute to the Queen, capturing some of her most iconic moments as she celebrates her Platinum Jubilee.